Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Jessie thought this was an interesting script, especially the scene when she was used as a human cannonball to shoot down the approaching demon lord. He was about to turn her into ash, but when he saw her face, he pulled back his attack and was hurt badly by the recoil. He held her in his arms, and they both fell into the mortal world. The story in the mortal world was interesting as well. Jessie's character nagged the demon lord like a mother, and it drove him mad. He tried to destroy her many times, but in the end, he couldn't. Jessie kept chuckling at the scene. She wondered what kind of face Julian would make during those scenes. He looked like a character that came from the age of myths, so scripts like these starring him would be a hit. However, this was the first time he took up a role like this. Even Jessie was looking forward to it, let alone Julian's fans. She started looking forward to the day of the shoot. Just then, her phone rang. It was from Lexi. "Hey, Lexi. Oh my gosh. You're the female lead for Fallen Heaven?" Lexi screamed excitedly. Jessie was stunned. "How did you know? Didn't you see Vincent's post? He had announced it." "What did he say?" "That you came as a pleasant surprise. He's looking forward to working with you. He even tagged the whole production team." "Oh, and Julian liked it as well." "You're obviously the lead, but I need confirmation." "I won't tell anyone, I swear," Lexi gushed. Jessie trusted her. Besides, now that Vincent had posted the status, she didn't need to hide it anymore. She smiled. "I just got notified of it. But it's still uncertain whether I can join." "I knew you could do it. You're beautiful. You'd get a lot of chances at success, unlike me. It'd be hard for me to find a job. After what I did last time, I don't even have a job now." Jessie stayed quiet for a while. "You can be my assistant." "I need one." "Really? You'd let me be your assistant?" "Yeah. You can work with me once I start shooting." "Oh my gosh. This is great news." "I will do anything, Jessie. Anything." Jessie then said, "Work with me. I'll make sure you're treated well." "Sure. I'll be waiting for your call." Jessie liked Lexi as she was straightforward, innocent, and easy to get along with, not to mention she was a real friend, too. Lending a hand when she needed it was what a friend should do. And then, her phone rang again. It was an unfamiliar number this time, but she picked it up anyway. "Hi, who's this?" "Jessie? It's me, Lulu. Congrats. I heard the news. You're Fallen Heaven's lead, aren't you? I knew you had the potential to be an actress, and now you've proved me right. More successful than anyone could imagine. Now, you're the female lead of the most anticipated show of the year, and Julian stars in the show. Awesome." Despite all the praise, all Jessie remembered was how Lulu berated her the whole day just because she performed better than her despite being a stunt woman. "Thank you, Miss Houston," she answered calmly. "You can just call me Lulu. You're being too formal. I heard they're still looking for a tritagonist. Can you recommend me? You know I can act." "Oh, so all the praise is so I would help her with getting a role." However, all she could think of now was the time she had to cry in silence every time these actresses trampled on her. She didn't want to remember those days, but that didn't mean she would forget about them either. "Sorry, but I can't help," Jessie refused. "Are you still angry at me?" "I'm sorry. A lot of things happened back then, so I was in a bad mood. Please don't be angry at me. I have to sleep now, Miss Houston. Goodbye." "Jessie? Jessie." Lulu didn't want to hang up, but Jessie couldn't care less. She hung up anyway. She continued reading the script. Everyone was watching her, especially the role she would play. She wouldn't let anyone down, nor would she give those haters a chance to mock her. I will play this role perfectly. I will challenge the impossible. However, not too long later, her phone rang again. It was another unfamiliar number. She hesitated for a moment, but she picked it up anyway. Who's this? Jessie? It's me, Mabel. Of course, Jessie knew who Mabel was. She narrowed her eyes. Anything you need? I just heard the news, and I'm happy for you. I knew you'd get the role the moment I saw you getting along with Julian. Didn't think Vincent approves of you as well. Jessie stayed quiet and let her talk. As she expected, Mabel started showing her true colors moments later. My friend told me you guys are looking for a tritagonist. Can you help me out? Mabel asked without feeling any shame at all. Sorry, but I can't help, Jessie answered coolly. Please, you gotta help me. Things are hard, and we're desperate for a job. Please, help me out. I'll help you out if you need me down the line. I don't need your help. Jessie was about to hang up, but Mabel hissed, Don't get too cocky, Jessie. You might have gotten lucky this time, but Julian might not help you next time. You need friends, get it? You didn't get what I meant. I don't need a friend like you. Jessie scoffed. Why you little? I don't know how you got the role, but what I do know is that an amateur like you can't possibly do the part of the female lead. They might change you out for someone else halfway through, Mabel mocked. I don't need your advice. With that, Jessie hung up. That was twice in a row. She couldn't believe it. She could never forget how these people had mocked her, and these people were the reason she resolved to walk this path. She looked through trending on social media to see how Fallen Heaven was faring, but to her surprise, the top search was something involving her. She clicked into it and noticed that the comments had already hit 100 grand and rising. She covered her mouth. She didn't open the comments in case they were all insults. In the end, however, she wanted to see what the netizens thought of her, so she clicked on it. And the content surprised her. A lot of fans were looking forward to this. I heard she's the prettiest stunt woman around. Now, I know why. I'm looking forward to this. She looks like a goddess. She won't disappoint us. I've seen too many familiar faces in too many shows. A newbie brings in a breath of fresh air. Hey, she got Julian's seal of approval. So, she gets my seal of approval as well. I'd love to see this film. I bet it's romantic. Jessie felt a weight lifted off her shoulders. If the fans are rooting for me, I have to root for myself as well. Two weeks later, Queenie and Nigel were already back in Averna. It was a sunny morning. They first had breakfast at home, and Nigel went to work in the afternoon. He asked the Presgrave couple out for dinner at night. It had been a while since Queenie and Jessie met, so the sisters locked themselves up in their room and had a little girls' talk. Jessie stared at the pictures of the island, looking forward to visiting it during her sister's wedding. Preparations were underway, and there was only a month left before the event. Queenie had to start the preparations on her side, like testing out gowns. We want you and Julian to be our bridesmaid and best man, Queenie said. Jessie blushed, but more than that, she felt happy. And she looked forward to it as well. In the meantime, Elliot came down with Willow in his arms. His family would have dinner with his cousin later that night. Willow was in pink attire, and her hair was tied up in pigtails. She looked like a doll who was sucking on her chubby hands. Mommy, Mommy, the girl wanted to see her mother, but Anastasia was nowhere to be found, and she was about to cry. Anastasia was working on the patio. When she heard her daughter, she ended her call and darted into the living room. She approached her husband and kissed her daughter. Willow hugged her and kissed her back. "We'll go for dinner once Jared comes home," Anastasia said. "I suppose she's eager to head out for a walk, too." Elliot was preparing the things his daughter needed: a baby bottle, cup, diapers, toys, and her favorite snacks. "Don't forget to take this, Elliot. It's a gift for Nigel's girlfriend," Anastasia reminded gently. He put it in Willow's bag and placed the bag on the stroller. Anastasia had taken Willow outside. The girl was 18 months old, and she loved to run around the most. She had boundless energy to spend. A few rounds later, Anastasia found herself exhausted. However, Willow was still brimming with energy, and she started running to the fields. Elliot quickly held his wife. "I'll do it. You get some rest." With that, he followed Willow quietly. When she tripped over a blade of grass, he went by her without helping her up. Willow puckered her lips, staring at her father. "Why isn't Daddy helping me up?" When she realized her father wasn't going to help her, she got back up herself and chased after her father. Dads usually let their children do more so they can be more independent. Elliot did want to help his daughter a few times, but he held the urge down just so she could be tougher. After Willow came back, Anastasia was already waiting with a bottle of milk in her hand. The girl quickly gulped it down as she happily lay in her father's arms. Eventually, she started dozing off and fell asleep without finishing her milk. Elliot took the bottle away and kissed his sleeping daughter. The love in his eyes was palpable. She was then placed in the stroller. Anastasia was cleaning up, and the moment she went past her husband, he pulled her into his embrace. She wrapped her arms around his neck, and he pressed his lips against hers. Only when the girl was asleep did they have time to flirt around. Anastasia was immersed in the moment. "I might have neglected him a lot after I had the baby. I spend a lot of time working and taking care of the kids. It feels like I don't love my husband anymore, huh?" "When she falls asleep tonight, come to the master bedroom," Elliot pleaded hoarsely. The last time he had asked Anastasia, she said yes, but she fell asleep after putting Willow to sleep and missed the date as a result. He was left hanging the whole night and spent the next day complaining to her non-stop. It was only after she went to work with him and spent 2 hours in the hotel next door that he finally let her off the hook. "We'll see." She didn't say yes that readily this time, just in case she stood him up again. He would pull the same stunt on her once more if that happened. "I don't care. If you aren't coming to me, then I'll go to you." He pressed his forehead against hers. She had no choice but to nod. "Fine." And then, the humming of a car traveled across the air. Anastasia pushed him away, took 2 steps backward, and straightened her hair and dress. Their son was growing up, so they had to be careful not to show any intimacy in front of him. Jared was 7 years old, yet he was taller than his peers, probably because he got his father's genes. He stood at about 4'7", and he looked like a middle schooler when in his uniform. And now, he would even get embarrassed when he was getting called by his nickname. He had truly grown up a lot. The first thing he saw when he came in was his sleeping sister. He quickly approached the stroller without taking his bag off. Gently, he looked at her before turning around to look at his parents. "Dad, Mom, I'm home. Put your bag in your room. We're having dinner with Uncle Nigel tonight," Anastasia said softly. "Really? Cool. I miss him." Jared quickly went upstairs and came back down a moment later. And then, the Presgraves left. Anastasia got into the car with Willow in her arms. The girl was still sleeping, and she shone like a little golden ball under the sun. A golden ball that smelled like milk. Jared huddled around his mother, staring at his sister. And then, he kissed Willow's hand. He liked how she smelled. 3 black cars set off for a restaurant in town. Nigel picked Queenie up and set off for the restaurant as well. Queenie felt a little nervous. She had heard of Elliot's name, but only in the news. She had never seen him in person, and having dinner with someone as prestigious as him put a lot of pressure on her. When the Presgraves came to the room, Willow had woken up. She looked around and started exploring the place. She crawled around the sofa, played with the trinkets on the table, and went to the balcony. She had a lot of energy after that recharge. Since the door was open, Nigel found a little ball of something approaching him when he came in, and that something hugged him. He stared down, and the sight of the baby melted his heart. Queenie gasped. "Oh my God, she's so cute." Right then, she saw a muscular man standing outside, and it was none other than Elliot, the baby's father. Nigel picked the baby up and introduced, "Queenie, this is Elliot." He introduced Queenie to Elliot as well. "This is Queenie, my girlfriend." "Hi, I'm Queenie. It's a pleasure to meet you." She smiled politely. Elliot smiled at her as well. "Hello." It was then Willow puckered her lips. She turned around and started hollering, clamoring for her father. After not seeing Nigel for a couple of months, she couldn't recognize him anymore. "Oh, sweetheart, don't cry. It's me, Uncle Nigel. Don't you remember me?" He quickly tried to calm the girl down, but she still puckered her lips and looked for her father. Elliot carried his daughter with a smile. Nigel felt slightly hurt, for the little one was pretty forgetful. "Nice to see you again, Nigel." Anastasia came out of the room with a smile. Queenie's eyes brightened, for she thought that Mrs. Presgrave was alluring. There was no denying that she was a stunning beauty. Although Queenie had seen many beautiful women, Anastasia was still the most charming and graceful woman she had ever come across. "Anastasia, let me introduce her to you. She's Queenie." Nigel then introduced Anastasia to Queenie. "She's Elliot's wife, who is also the president and chairperson of QR Jewelry Group." Queenie instantly had the urge to learn from her. She hoped that she would be as independent and capable as Anastasia one day. "Nice to meet you, Anastasia. I'm Queenie." As she spoke, she gazed at the woman with admiration. On the other hand, Anastasia immediately took a liking to her. She supposed that they were the same kind of people, for she could tell that Queenie was a kind-hearted and friendly woman at first glance. She was truly pleased that Nigel had found such a gentle yet determined wife. "Please come in." Anastasia took Queenie's hand and shuffled into the private room. When Queenie saw a handsome young boy sitting on the couch, she was awestruck, thinking that the Presgraves were all good-looking people. "Jared, say hi to Aunt Queenie," Anastasia said to her son. "Hi, Aunt Queenie," Jared greeted politely. "Hi, Jared." Queenie waved her hand with a smile. Then, the men entered the room. Willow had stopped throwing a tantrum and was now focused on munching the cookie in her hands. Elliot put her down in a high chair, and the little one continued having her snack. There was no doubt that she was a foodie who spent most of her time eating. Even though she was just 1.5 years old, she already weighed about 30 pounds. Anastasia had been trying to help her lose some weight, but the little one would never miss a meal, or she would blow her top. Therefore, Anastasia could only let her be. "Call me Uncle, Willow. I have something delicious for you." Nigel was still saddened by the fact that his beloved niece had forgotten about him. The instant the little one heard there was food for her, she turned to look at Nigel, who was trying to attract her attention with a cake. She quickly put down the cookie and took the cake, then proceeded to devour it wholeheartedly. "Queenie, did Nigel tell you that I held my wedding on an island? The weather is lovely in August, so the island would be a good place to hold a wedding." Anastasia started having a chat with Queenie. "He told me about it before. I love being on the island. In fact, The wedding planners have gone over to set up the venue. Beside them, Elliot and Nigel were talking about the guests they had to invite. In fact, Nigel's parents would send the invitation cards to their relatives, and he would phone his friends to inform them about it. There was a lot to talk about regarding the wedding, and they had fun chatting with each other. Queenie could feel that the Presgraves were all kind and considerate people. Willow and Jared were good-looking and obedient. On the other hand, Elliot seemed like a responsible husband and father who took good care of his wife and children. Queenie couldn't help but envision herself taking care of her future kids after she married Nigel. While Elliot was patiently feeding food to his daughter, Anastasia and Queenie started talking about jewelry. Anastasia taught her how to select and identify real gems while Queenie learned everything that she could from her attentively. After they were done with the meal, the men amused the kids while Anastasia took Queenie's hand and sat down on the couch. She passed her the gift she had prepared for her. "Queenie, it's my first time seeing you, so I've prepared a gift for you. I hope you'll like it." Queenie opened the box and realized that it was a set of fine jewelry. The accessories were stunning. "It's too expensive, Anastasia. You're getting married, so you'll need these accessories. They'll match your evening gown perfectly." The jewelry Anastasia gave her was costly, and she had designed them herself. Anastasia designed them herself. "Just accept her gift," Elliot said with a smile. At that instant, Queenie felt that the gift was profoundly meaningful, so she unwittingly clenched them tightly. "Thanks, Anastasia. I'll be sure to treasure your gift. I'm glad that you like it. Visit us frequently and have a chat with us. We can also go out for a cup of coffee or an afternoon tea," Anastasia said gently. Moved by the woman's hospitality, Queenie nodded. "All right, Anastasia. I still have a lot to learn from you." "Sure. If there's anything you don't understand, just reach out to me," Anastasia replied with a smile. After dinner ended, Elliot and his family members went to a nearby shopping mall while Nigel and Queenie went home to get some rest. In the shopping mall, Elliot was walking around with his daughter in his arms, and they attracted a lot of attention. The little one loved being in a shopping mall. While in her father's arms, she couldn't stop looking around. Meanwhile, Anastasia followed behind them while holding her son's hand, and several bodyguards accompanied the family until they went home at about 9 p.m. Willow fell asleep an hour later after being exhausted from playing all day. Right after Anastasia was done showering, she received a message on her phone. When she saw the picture of a hooked finger on the screen, she realized what that man wanted to do. She wrote in an attempt to annoy him, "Good night. I'm tired. Don't be naughty. Come over here." The man started coaxing her. "No. If you disappoint me, the consequences will be dreadful," the man pressed. The man resorted to using the carrot and stick trick to get intimate with her. Therefore, Anastasia stopped teasing him. Before that, she went to her son's room and made sure that he was asleep. This was the daily life of a married couple. Only when the kids were asleep could they have their private time. The moment Anastasia knocked on the door of the room on the 4th floor, she was pulled into the bedroom by the man. The light was dim, and the man's passionate kisses landed on her. Although they had been married for a while, she would still feel a tremor quaking through her whenever they kissed, for the man became increasingly charming as he aged. On the other hand, she could no longer imagine a life without him. "Hurry up. I'm worried that the kids will wake up. I'm sure they'll sleep through the night. No more than 1 hour, please." "You're underestimating me, sweetheart." Anastasia was rendered speechless. 3 days later, Jessie, the female lead, went to the company for a photo shoot. Vincent personally came over to watch her try on the costumes. Jessie had arrived pretty early on to have her makeup done. Through the mirror, she could see that the makeup artist was gently putting on a wig over her head. The wig perfectly matched her hair, which was styled into a graceful hairstyle. Her long hair was at her waist, and she still looked alluring even without her bangs. She could easily pass off as someone much younger. After getting her makeup done, Jessie had some help putting on a traditional dress meticulously. There was a total of 5 sets of costumes, which depicted the story of the female lead turning from a naive young girl into a heroine who would save the world. It wasn't until the evening that she was done trying on 5 sets of clothes. Other actresses would have started whining long ago, but Jessie never complained about it. Regardless of how laborious the process was, she remained seated for a long time and let the makeup artists do their job. Therefore, all the staff members had a good impression of her. When they learned that they had to work with a rising actress, they were initially worried that she would be difficult to deal with. It never crossed their minds that not only was she approachable, but she had also bought them snacks. She was friendly whenever she talked to them, and there was no denying that she was a down-to-earth person. Vincent was seated beside the photo editor as he observed Jessie through the lens. He was increasingly confident that Jessie was the female lead he had been looking for. Get the photos edited by tonight and post them on our social media accounts by 8 a.m. tomorrow. We'll officially introduce Jessie to the media, Vincent ordered. It was already 9 p.m. when Jessie left the company. As she sat inside the car, she looked out at the busy street. Although she was exhausted, she was content. Just then, Jessie received a message on her phone. The moment she picked up her phone, her lips twisted into a smile as her eyes tinged with joy. It was Julian. "Are you done with the photo shoot? Are you heading home?" he asked caringly. "Yes, I'm done with it. I'm going home right now," Jessie replied. "Get some rest when you reach home. The opening ceremony will be held soon." "I will." "You should get some rest as well," Jessie replied considerately. The opening ceremony would take place in 3 days, and she would be busy starring in the movie. Apart from acting, she looked forward to spending most of her time with Julian on set. By then, they would be living in the same place. During their spare time, they could read their scripts together. They might also have to work together until the middle of the night. All in all, she could do many things with him. The next morning, Jessie's photos were posted on various social media pages. Her fans started praising her as they looked forward to watching the movie in cinemas, especially when the movie had been adapted from their favorite story. While Jessie was swamped with work, Queenie was busy preparing for her wedding. Indeed, their lives were fulfilling. On the 3rd morning, they had to head to the filming location to take part in the opening ceremony. There was no doubt that the company was wealthy as all the important actors and actresses boarded a chartered plane reserved for the occasion. In the morning, Jessie headed to the airport with Lexi and the 3 bodyguards her father had hired for her. The moment they entered the cabin, Lexi excitedly grabbed the hem of Jessie's clothes as soon as she caught sight of Julian sitting by the window. The man was clad in black clothes. His dispassionate demeanor seemed to have formed a barrier around him, which ensured that no one would disturb him without permission. However, when he saw Jessie, he curled up his lips and patted the seat beside him. "Have a seat here." Jessie said something to Lexi, who then went to the economy class cabin. After that, Jessie took a seat beside Julian where they were in the first class cabin. There were about 50 crew members who boarded the plane with them. Vincent and several important members were also seated in the first class cabin, still talking about work. As Jessie listened to them, the plane started moving forward on the runway. Instantly, she became nervous. Though others might not believe her, it was only her 2nd time on board a plane. When she was a body double back then, she always chose the cheapest mode of transport wherever she went. Given her identity at that time, traveling in a plane was a luxury. Therefore, she couldn't help but feel anxious the moment the plane moved forward. The man beside her saw the anxiety on her face, so he leaned close to the woman and placated her by saying, "Don't worry. It's safe." Jessie nodded at him, her face stiff. She wouldn't want to embarrass herself, but she couldn't stop feeling uneasy. The instant the plane took off, she was deluged with a sense of weightlessness all of a sudden. She wrapped her arm around Julian's and pressed her head against the man's shoulder. Julian just let her do whatever she wanted. When the plane finally stabilized, Jessie released his arm, her face evidently blushing. "Do you feel better?" Julian asked in a small voice. Jessie lowered her head. "Yes, I'm fine now." Then, she was drawn to the clouds outside of the plane. When Julian saw her looking out the window, he unfastened his belt and said, "You can have my seat." Jessie gave him a grateful look and became seated by the window so that she could have a better look at the view outside. The clouds seemed soft, and they had been dyed golden as the sun cast its glow on them. It was just like the legendary story that would be turned into a film. When they arrived at the airport, they were not greeted by fans since they hadn't revealed their schedule on the internet. Following that, Jessie and Julian headed to the hotel in the same car. Jessie had returned to the largest filming location in the country once again, but she was in a different mood this time. Now, she had come back as an actress, and she would take part in her first movie. After arriving at the hotel, they entered the place while trying not to attract anyone's attention. However, their photos were still taken by the paparazzi who had been waiting for them. Therefore, news started spreading online. The fact that Julian and Jessie, the female lead of the new film, had checked into the same hotel soon became trending news. Jessie's room was just beside Julian's. In fact, she was staying in a luxurious suite. She had brought 3 suitcases with her that were full of clothes, toiletries, and her favorite snacks of the finest quality that her mother had bought for her. Her luggage was filled with her parents' love. In the afternoon, they were going to have a meal together. The moment Jessie stepped out of her room, she came across Julian, who had 2 assistants and 4 bodyguards with him. His assistants, who were a man and a woman, had been responsible for taking care of his daily needs. "Let's go downstairs together," Julian offered. Jessie nodded and stepped into the elevator with him. A while later, the elevator stopped moving, and 2 actresses entered the next moment. They were familiar faces in showbiz. Both of them were equally excited when they saw Julian, but when they set their eyes on Jessie, they appeared scornful and derisive. Needless to say, a new actress probably slept with some powerful figure to land the role of the female lead. Therefore, in their eyes, Jessie snatched the role using such a deplorable way. Jessie sensitively detected their disdain, but there was nothing she could do about it. No one in showbiz was aware that she was a young lady from the Silverstein family yet. Hence, she couldn't blame them for seeing her through colored lenses. "Hey, I hear there's a rising actress recently. Do you know what's going on?" "Oh, you mean a certain someone, huh? I know her. I hear that she landed her role by sleeping with some powerful man. Youngsters these days are pretty loose, aren't they?" Upon finishing her words, the actress shot a glance at Jessie. Although they never named anyone, Jessie knew that they were mocking her. Faced with such slander, she didn't know how to refute them. "Are you done?" a man's impassive voice was heard questioning. The actresses were shocked. When they turned their heads around and saw Julian getting furious, they couldn't help but flinch. "If you dare humiliate her again, I'll make sure you'll be expelled from showbiz," Julian warned them with his gaze. The color drained from their faces as they diffidently hung their heads low. Just then, the elevator doors opened. The actresses dashed out of the elevator even though it wasn't the floor they intended to get off at. Only Jessie and Julian were left in the elevator. She said gratefully, "Thanks for standing up for me." If anyone dares to say such things to you again, just tell me. I'll handle it for you, Julian said to her. Moved, Jessie bowed her head. They slept through the night in the hotel, and the opening ceremony started at 10 a.m. the next morning. Jessie, Julian, and 6 other main actors and actresses had come together. Reporters from different media companies were present as well. Then, Vincent was welcomed on stage to give a speech. Following that, the actors and actresses let the reporters take photos of them. Jessie was standing beside Julian, and as they were surrounded by reporters who snapped photos of them, she felt the emotions in her heart undulating as though they were there to attend her wedding, and the man she loved was just beside her. Many people were there to watch the opening ceremony, including a low-profile woman. The sunglasses and mask that she wore concealed her face, but it was apparent that she had a curvy figure. Behind the sunglasses were a pair of jealous eyes that stared fixedly at Jessie. However, when she looked at Julian, she appeared dejected and melancholic. She was the female lead in Julian's previous movie. When word got out that Eva had resigned from her role, she was the first one to call Vincent, who immediately agreed to let her take part in the audition. She was pleased and expectant, but eventually, she learned that Julian had cancelled the audition. Soon, she found out that Julian had reserved the role for a new actress who used to be a body double. As an award-winning actress, she was naturally helpless. Therefore, she came to the opening ceremony on this day to see for herself why this new actress had managed to gain Julian's favor. The reporters were still not done with the photo session when a breeze whisked through them and brought up some sand. Before Jessie could react, some sand had come into contact with her eyes. Although Julian's face was covered with sweat, he still pulled Jessie into his arms and brought her somewhere else before checking her eyes. Jessie couldn't open her eyes, but it was nothing serious. Julian gently blew some air at her eyes, not once concealing his concern for the woman even though they were surrounded by fans and reporters. Lisa Powers gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. Why is Julian so concerned about this new actress? Just then, a female supporter recognized her and exclaimed, "Oh, my gosh. Are you Lisa? You've gotten the wrong person." At that, Lisa covered her face with her hand and turned around to leave. She had to head to another film set. Since she wasn't selected as the female lead for this movie, she could only settle for another historical movie she didn't have high hopes for. Furthermore, she was paired with an actor who hadn't made a name for himself yet. Therefore, she loathed Julian for treating Jessie so well. Vincent had agreed to let her take part in the audition, but Julian crushed her hope. On the other hand, Jessie must have used a dirty trick to snatch that chance from her. Hence, she hated them both. After getting into the car, she still couldn't help but set her eyes on the opening ceremony. That place was bustling with noises, and everyone was congratulating the director, the actors, and the actresses. On the other hand, she was an award-winning actress, but her opening ceremony the day before had been cheerless. "Have you seen Jessie? What does she look like?" Lisa's assistant asked in an angry voice. Lisa said through clenched teeth, "She has nothing but a beautiful face. Do you think she can act at all?" "I agree with you. Everyone says she got her role by sleeping with some powerful man." However, Lisa knew that Jessie did not necessarily bed anyone to land the role, for Julian was protective of her. Julian was someone who hated loose women, so there was no way Jessie had slept with someone since he was fond of her. That was what made Lisa feel crestfallen. She had fallen in love with Julian during the production of their previous movie. She had spent 1.5 years wooing him, but he still wasn't into her at all. What was more, he had hired a body double to take part in all their intimate scenes. Is Julian going to use a body double during their intimate scenes this time? She couldn't help but wonder. As far as she was concerned, Julian had been using body doubles since his very first movie, never taking part in intimate scenes at all. All his movies were critically acclaimed because he was good at acting, and the plots were interesting as well. Meanwhile, intimate scenes were less important. Jessie still felt some soreness in her eyes while Lexi helped her get into the car. Someone sent them a bottle of eye lotion, to which Julian accepted it and got into the car as well. Seeing that, Lexi tactfully got out of the vehicle. Jessie's eyes were covered with tears, which could easily arouse a man's pity. "Don't move. I'll help clean your eyes." As Julian spoke, he picked up a towel and gently rubbed the corners of her eyes. Jessie blinked, then drops of tears slid down her cheeks. He dabbed her face with the towel and helped her with the eye lotion. As soon as the eye lotion came into contact with her eyes, the cold sensation made her blink rapidly. The man felt sorry for her. "Let's cover your eyes with a cold towel." Julian picked up another towel and wrung it out. Then, he lowered her seat and placed the towel over her eyes. The light blue towel perfectly matched her delicate facial features. Her pink lips, which were pressed into a line, were especially alluring. Julian couldn't help but be drawn to her face. As he gaped at her, he realized that the temperature in the car was rising rapidly. He couldn't help but gulp. Right then, Jessie's phone, which was in her hand, slid down to the space beside the seat. "Did I drop my phone?" Jessie asked as she was unable to open her eyes. "Yes." "Do you want me to pick it up for you?" "Yes, please." Julian got up slightly and hovered above Jessie as he tried to pick her phone up. However, the inside of the car wasn't spacious. Her phone was on the floor, so their faces almost came into contact. Jessie realized that the man was very close to her, so she instinctively wanted to get up. To her surprise, she accidentally kissed the man's cheek. Both the kisser and the one being kissed were stumped. Jessie hurriedly removed the towel from her eyes, only to blush when she finally realized who it was. Julian, on the other hand, continued to fish out Jessie's phone for her. His face was merely inches away from her. He was so close that she could even feel his breath brushing against her face. Finally, he successfully retrieved her phone. However, a red line formed on the back of his hand due to the force he exerted. While taking the phone from him, Jessie looked at the slightly bruised hand with pain. "I'm sorry. Does it hurt?" As the seats came with a massage function, there was a small gap between the seats. So, fishing out a fallen phone wasn't so hard. "Don't worry about it." "How are your eyes?" asked Julian as he scrutinized her eyes. Jessie blinked tentatively and couldn't help gushing when whatever was in her eyes was gone. "They're fine now." "That's good." Julian was relieved. "You stay here while I take a look outside." "No, wait. Let's go together." Jessie didn't want to miss out on the rest of the event, especially when there were refreshments and a gift-giving session. Besides, she had also prepared some goodie bags to hand out. When the two came out of the car, the media concurrently pointed their cameras in their direction. It was Jessie's first time facing so many media outlets. Thus, she felt intimidated by their cameras. Vincent personally came to check on Jessie before ushering the media and guests for some refreshments. Meanwhile, the assistants also began handing out goodie bags. As usual, Julian was generous. Anyone who showed up would receive $2,000 worth of goodies from him. Hence, the media beamed with joy. With such a handsome gift, the pictures of this booting ceremony would undoubtedly be decent at the very least, and sure enough, the pictures the media published all looked stunning. Lexi had given all of Jessie's goodie bags away, and she had claimed Julian and Vincent's goodie bags for herself too. If anything, she just wanted a piece of joy and luck at the event. Julian's assistant, too, accepted some goodie bags while Julian took Jessie's and handed the rest to his assistant. It was evident her goodie bag weighed differently from his. The booting ceremony thereafter ended on a high note, and everyone returned to the hotel together. After Julian returned to his room, a knock came at his door, and he assumed it was Jessie, for he had requested her to join him in a read-through in the afternoon. With that, he answered the door only to find someone else, Lisa, who had evidently dressed up. "I have something I want to talk to you about, Julian. Can I come in?" She beamed affectionately. "You can tell me right here," he answered nonchalantly. "It has to do with your privacy." "I think it's best if we talk inside," she suggested. To that, Julian pondered for a moment and let her in. Just as Lisa entered, a phone that had its recorder on was tucked away behind the pillar. They worked for Lisa, and she had deliberately made the arrangement. Her popularity had plummeted recently, and the best way to garner public attention was to have dating rumors with Julian. Hence, she wanted to use this method to pull her popularity back up. "So, what is it?" He looked icily at Lisa as he sat on the couch. Lisa, on the other hand, felt utterly defeated. She had starred in a production alongside him, and they even played as a couple in the show, but in reality, he treated her with nothing but impassiveness. "Julian, I heard someone had taken pictures of you changing in the previous production. You have to watch out. Your new show has just begun to broadcast. I worry someone will use them to slander you." Seeing that she just wanted to tell him about such trifle issues, he checked his watch to find it was already 2:18 p.m., while his rendezvous time with Jessie was at 2:30 p.m. At that, he stood up and said, "I've still got stuff to do, Miss Powers. Please don't bother me with trifling matters again."
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.